Dave is getting the stream back up. Don't fail us now, Dave. We're halfway through. Don't let it die yet. All right, our next speaker is Mick Douglas, and he's going to be doing Blue Team is Sexy, refocusing on defense. And let me give you a quick little bio of Mick here. Mick is a white hat hacker who hates the term white hat. He's a member of the Paul.com security podcast. While he joins in pen tests, his passion is network and system defense, which we'll be talking about today. With that, Mick Douglas.
Hey everyone. So since this is a smaller group, if you don't mind, I'd like to make this presentation just be a little more interactive. So if you have any questions, you see anything, you want to challenge me, you think I'm full of it, let me know, okay? This is a small crowd, let's have fun with it. All right, so my talk is Blue Team is Sexy, refocusing on defense. Now, I arrived a little bit late due to traffic and being a little sleepy from going at the AID conference yesterday. And yeah, AID, all right, much love to Marshall U. So I get here just a couple minutes before right now, and I'm told, you need to have a stick figure in your presentation. And I was like, oh really, a stick figure? And they're like, yeah, so, boom. Quota met, no more stick figures, that's that. All right, so now, here's the problem, right? Before I really get into the talk, I just want to show of hands, how many people here are red teamers? Do red team, do attack, pen testing? Okay, so we got a some folks doing that. How many people here are blue team? You do defense, do that. All right, how many people are like managers, do management, that sort of stuff? All right, how many people haven't raised their hand and are just kind of hanging around? All right, cool. Well, for you guys that are hanging around, I fully expect, plenty of shenanigans and having me being called out on some stuff. But here's some things that I've noticed, and we've been talking about on the Paul.com podcast lately, is that things are a little weird in the information security industry right now. And in some cases, things are actually going quite badly. One of the things that I contend, and this is just my opinion, is that the blue team, the people who are doing the defense, aren't getting enough love. And we're going to go over why they're not getting that, and some things that you can do as a blue team member, or things you can do as a red team member, or things you can do as management to help give the blue team some love. One thing that you need to remember is that information security is kind of like a stool or a tripod. There's going to be multiple people, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit in the slides, but you're going to have the red team and the blue team and management, and all three of them working together will give you a holistic information security program. If you don't have those three pieces working in concert, bad things are going to start happening. And I see some of the wry smiles and some people kind of nodding, and you're like, yeah, I know, I'm feeling that pain. Well, hopefully we can talk about some of the root causes for that and give you some ways to fix them. So now, blue team is just the unsung hero. When you're doing your blue team and you're doing your job well, what happens? Nothing, that's right. That's what you want. Does that cause a problem though? Sure. If good is not being heard from, it's easy to ignore. The other problem is that blue team just isn't flashy. It doesn't have the razzle-dazzle. That gets to my next point. Red team gets all the attention. When was the last time that there was a hacker con where somebody said, check out this firewall config. Look how awesome it is. Yeah, you're laughing, right? Because it just doesn't happen. And that's a problem. Red team does have some flash. They do have razzle-dazzle. It's neat. I do red team. I love doing red team work. But, we can't leave the other half of the entire industry in the dust for that. That's just insane. So the problem is this blue team being ignored, red team getting all the attention causes a feedback loop, okay? Some of the things that I've been seeing, and again, I'm going to talk about this in a couple slides, red team is getting a little more funding, a little more resources than blue team is. You're seeing cases of where blue team people who might be rock stars at blue team have a very shallow career arc. After they go so far, they have to go red team in order to advance their career. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you want to go red team, more power to you. Come see me after this. Come talk to the security justice guys. We will be more than happy to teach you and give you the tips and tricks to be successful in red. But the problem is, what about that firewall admin? What about that log analyst? What about those people that love what they're doing and are getting satisfaction out of their job, but they're just stuck? That sucks. We're going to talk about ways to grow your career. Now, it's my opinion, just my opinion, that the attention has swung a little too far to the red team. There's nothing wrong with red team. There's good red team people, there's bad red team people. But what I'm just talking about is, in aggregate, a little too much attention is on the red. Now, I don't want you blue teamers or management people to say, okay, attention away from the red team. No. We need to give more attention to red, or keep the attention at red where we're at because it's good, and just give more attention and love to blue. So, there's some tech reasons why the blue team is not getting the attention that they should, in my opinion. This part will be a little controversial and will rub some nerves the wrong way. The part where it's really going to rub nerves the wrong way, though, is when I talk about from the management perspective. There are some things that fundamentally have to change if you're going to have a successful career as a blue teamer. Notice that I'm putting all the work and effort on blue team. Nobody is going to come in and rescue you and coddle you and say, you know what, blue team, we love you. You're going to have to earn this love. Blue team is sexy, but you got to go out and earn it. Nobody's going to sweep in and love you and everything's going to be all better. I wish I had magic bullets, don't have any. But what I am hoping is to give you a few bullets that can maybe be magical with your work. Okay, so foot and mouth forecast. There's a very good chance that I'm going to say something that'll tick somebody off or make me look a fool because, hi, my name's Mick Douglas. If you haven't heard the podcast or you haven't listened to my blogs or whatever, it's just what I do. Now, I don't know if you caught that, but when I was holding up the hands about red team, blue team, I actually did have my hands up in both cases. I do blue team work. I do red team work. So if this talk at all sounds schizophrenic at times, that's why. It's just a nature of the job that I do. I do have designs on making management. So because of these designs on management, it's been causing me to rethink how I, as a security practitioner, should be approaching the suits. A lot of the times that I have people, when we're once the bar opens, we'll be having beers and, swapping war stories. And inevitably, very short order, somebody starts talking about oh man, did you see, remember the time that we were having the DHCP server problem and we just told management we need blah and they just wouldn't do it. There's a damn good reason why management didn't do it. When we come to management and say, hey, there's a security problem, they're not going to want to hear that. You know why? Because it's very, very rare are you in a situation where security makes money. You're a cost. Where does that put you in the priority chain? Really low. In a little bit, we're going to talk about how to speak to managers so that you can at least bump yourself up and maybe get to the top of the non-revenue producing list of things to do. All right, now, if I offend you at any point in this presentation, I'm sorry. Let me know. This is a small enough crowd that you can just call me out on it. Feel free to do so. But just think of this particular exercise or this particular presentation as an exercise in cow tipping, sacred cow tipping. Now, I mentioned about the stool, the three-legged stool or the tripod. The three different people that are groups that interact are blue team, red team, management. We're going to go into those a little bit right now. So, red team. Red team is actually easier than blue team. I'm not saying that it's like dead simple. I'm not saying, run DB Autopone or Core or whatever tool du jour. And those tools, by the way, are fine. It's just that shouldn't be your only trick in your, bag of tricks. But what I do want to say is that being red, in general, is easier than being blue. And the reason why is a thing called attacker's advantage. If you haven't heard the term attacker's advantage, you might want to make a mental note, write it down, because this is something you need to, this particular phrase is something that will buy you a lot of traction when you're dealing with management and especially senior leadership at your organizations. Think of it this way. Medieval times, you got a king. The king needs to be protected for the good of the king, for the good of the kingdom. So what do? They build a castle. They got the high keep tower, they got the arrow slits, the murder holes, the moat, the drawbridge, all these things to keep the king safe. So that sucks. It's going to be real expensive to field an army and attack that castle. So what do the attackers do? What does the red team do? Real easy. You go the spy route. You have a court jester who's coming in, juggling balls, and the king's like, oh, you're so merry. Thank you, court jester. And then at the key moment, court jester just reaches into his sleeve, throwing dagger, king is dead. And guess what? That whole castle, the moat, everything was for naught. That's exactly where we're at with pen testing these days. You've got your firewall, you got your your network segmentation, all these things, and all I have to do is convince you to open up this PDF, pretty please. Or I could use Kennedy's nice tool and say, hey, here's an email, open it up. So like if I were going to, attack Dave Kennedy, all I'd have to do is say, hey, Dave, for a lifetime supply of Arnold Palmer's, just click this link. Yeah, it's actually probably worth it. Cost benefit analysis, yeah. Hold on a second. Let me fire up set. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, does that make sense? It's easier to do red team. You only need one way in. Just one. Blue team, and the reason I find blue team to be so rewarding and challenging, and you see me smiling when I'm talking about this, you have to defend every damn thing. That is hard. That is cool. That is worthy work. I like that. Now, getting back to what I was talking about a bit ago, with red team drawing all the attention, it's seen as where the rock stars go. If you're really good at information security, well, you got to go red team as your career advances. You just have to. And you know what? That's cool. If you want to do that, God bless, have fun. I really enjoy doing red team work. I hope to continue to do red team work. It's really, it is rewarding. But what if you're a blue team guy and you just love doing your blue team stuff? I have been in positions and at other companies where blue team people have been just rocking it, doing a great job, but because they're blue team and they've been at their position for a certain length of time and hit a technical maturation point, they say, okay, well, your career development arc here as the firewall admin is over, and now you get to be the network scan monkey. And in all but 3 cases that I've seen that happen, it's just disastrous for that person because they didn't want to move. If you want the gig, by all means, go for it. But make sure that you have some sort of career arc. We'll talk about that. Now, red teaming is new. And yesterday, I mentioned, yesterday I was at AID, which is a conference at Marshall University, and many of the talks were about just how awful, how almost, well, fraudulent isn't too strong a word, actually. just how bad some red team people are. There's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the things that I would posit is that red teaming is new. It's a newer thing, so we don't have as many controls in place to understand what a good pen test entails or not. And so, as a result, a lot of people are making what is actually obscene levels of money for doing really crappy work. Now, that's not everyone, but there are people out there who do that. There's plenty who do a great job. But it's odd that market corrections haven't been brought to bear as fast as you would maybe think that they would have in that situation. Now, blue team. Actually, hold on a second. Let me show you something. I did a Google image search for red team, and I have a rocket launcher. Your argument is invalid. And I was like, cool, I'm going to use that for my presentation. And then I did a Google image search for blue team, and I got that. Okay, seriously, folks, that in and of itself tells you how big of a problem we have in our head space in terms of what it is to be red team, to be blue team, okay? Blue team, unfortunately, has a shallower career arc, usually. Depends on your organization, but in the main, it's usually a shallower arc. I hate to tell you this, though, blue teamers, as a red team guy, as an auditor who comes in and tests your networks, you're not using your tools as effectively as you can. Now, the good news is a lot of folks don't know some of the tricks and pointers I'm going to give you. So it's not that you're like being negligent in your job. It's just that you're not using the tools to their fullest extent. So by using the tools you have to your fullest extent, you're going to be able to have using the same or maybe even less budget, you're going to have a higher impact for your organization. And at that point, management's just going to be eating up what you say because you're saving money or doing more with same. By the way, if you're in management and you ever say doing more with less, I need to talk with you after the talk because that's just awful. And finally, blue team does need to improve on communication with management. When you as a blue teamer ask or put in your budget request and you say this is really important and blah 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 blah, and you say, well, my management is just stupid, they don't get it, blah, whine. It takes two to tango, okay? If you've been asking for the same things over and over again and you're not getting them, maybe there's something wrong with the organization. Maybe it's not you, but you do have to do a little bit of analysis, a little soul searching and see what you can do to make it be better. Now, management also has a stake in this. I know a lot of you are like more of the hacker mindset, and so you kind of have this suits kind of attitude because, quite frankly, I used to. And so I understand and appreciate it. But understand that management has the opportunity or crisis du jour, so they're very interrupt-driven, much more so than we are. That has some very interesting ramifications for your job. Namely, the people who are flashy, red team, are going to get the limited attention that they have. So maybe you need to do something to make yourself a little flashier. Maybe make a dashboard so that they can see when things are doing well. I don't know. Also, quite frankly, I have seen management needlessly constrict the blue team where they hobble them. And the reason why is things like firewalls, things like application-aware firewalls, things like network access control are a little more mature than some of the red team procedures and policies that have been in place lately. And so they understand these things and will, put these restrictions on them, but they don't do the same for red team, which is a little unfair. They're too loose with the red as the result. And then also understand that there is a lack of tech skills, but I put a question mark there because I would posit to you that if you are a manager and you're a doggone good manager, you really don't need to be that much of a propeller head. You don't need to be a geek. All you need to be able to do is understand how to deal with constraints, deliverables, that sort of stuff. You, as the technologist, are just the enabler for business. Okay, so not using tools, or using the tools we have, but not in the best way. So what I'm talking about here, when I'm saying hacking the tools, what I mean is hacking them in the good old MIT fashion, making them do new and interesting things, or maybe enabling things that were there all along, but we just never had reason to enable them. So we're going to talk about all of these things: your firewall, antivirus logs, patching, automation, and user education. Each of these things, though, you're probably looking at and going, oh, boy, this guy's just getting all preachy and talking about the same old, same old. Well, I hate to tell you, but I'm going to be talking about this using the same old, but in new ways. Okay? Remember, we talk about layered defense, and if you look at this, this would be a nice layered defense to have in your environment. But the thing is, I've seen a lot of cases of where people have a layered defense, but it doesn't actually contribute to a holistic system. It's just, I've got firewall, I've got this device, I've got that device. And working across all of them is very problematic. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So now, hacking your network. You need to, if you're a blue teamer, start thinking like a red teamer. What are some things that you can do to frustrate them? One of my favorite things when I'm doing an assessment of a place is where they'll be providing network access maps and drawings and that sort of, Visio diagrams and all that happy stuff, is they'll say, well, here is the firewall. And when I hear that, I think hard, crunchy outer shell, soft, gooey middle, because that's really what they've got. If you're in a situation where you've got the firewall, you're in trouble. So you need to make sure that you have multiple firewalls all over the place. And there's plenty of interesting things that you can do with these multiple firewalls. Show of hands here. How many people are doing egress filtering at your firewalls? Okay, so that's actually a good amount. Okay, so for those of you who didn't raise your hand, or I'll just open this up to everyone. All right, what service uses TCP and UDP 53? DNS. Okay, cool. Do you, as an end user at your workstation, do you need to talk DNS? Locally. Excellent. That's right. I need to talk with my corporate DNS server. Do I ever need to talk with the DNS servers out on the wild internet? Okay, so there are alternate DNS services. That's true. Be mindful of who you go to. But as an end user, like just a typical end user, you really don't need to do that. And I'm just betraying one of my favorite tricks here when I'm doing red team work. It's very rare, I should say, for me to have an environment where they're filtering DNS outbound. So if I get a shell on a machine, or I need to get a file off that system, I can just encapsulate that in DNS traffic, and it's just off to the races. Red teamers, am I right? I mean, that's a very easy way to go out. Is that detectable at your network detection egress filters? It could be, if you have them tuned right, but chances are you're just going to say, oh, DNS traffic. It's all good. So be thinking egress filters. True, in the scenario that I outlined, there's already malware in the system, but how frustrating is it for somebody to have a bot or have something and not being able to control it? Very. So it's a good tool to have. Have application-aware firewalls. I see plenty of places where they have firewalls in place and they're doing okay, but they don't have the application component enabled. Many load balancers have this functionality, and people don't use them. There's plenty of reasons to do this. The overhead, from a performance standpoint, is not that bad, but the payoff is actually really, really good, and your out-of-pocket expenses in many cases are going to just be zero because you're just enabling existing functionality that you've paid for. MAC address lockdowns. So do we have any network administrators in here? Yeah? Okay, a couple. Yeah, you're seeing that and going like, oh, you so-and-so. You know what? I've been there, done my time as a network administrator. MAC address lockdown, for those of you who don't know, is where you configure the switch port, or like on the switch, to only accept the physical address of the machine that it's connecting to. And it's tedious to do that, but it becomes very problematic if you're like in an environment where, say, the end user workstations are going to be swapping out very often. But the thing that's cool about MAC address lockdowns is if you have like a conference room and you have MAC address lockdown set up, and a pen tester comes in and they go dink and plug into your conference Ethernet jack, they're not going to get on there, or they're going to have to do some major shenanigans in order to get in there. So it's a very cool thing. All the switches that I know of that are commercially available support this out the chute. You need to look into MAC address lockdowns. If not for your desktop environments, what about your server rooms? How often do you swap out the server machines? Not very. Huge return on investment. Source routing. I used to be a router administrator. I understand that large environments have to, in some cases, allow source routing, which is basically where in your packet you tell it which hops it's going to take rather than letting the routers along the way determine the path. I would recommend that you go to your network teams or your management and see if you can turn off source routing inside your network. Don't fall on your sword for that one, though. There might be some weird legacy reasons that you have to support it. What you should, though, get ready to fall on your sword for is accepting source routing inbound. There's no reason you should ever, ever, ever do that. I don't want to get into the technical reasons why, just due to time constraints. See me if you have questions about that. Baseline. Baseline your network. Know what normal looks like. There's plenty of tools out there. If you don't have traffic analyzers, tools like NTOP, Argus, there's NetFlow, if you're using that. There's plenty of commercial tools out there. But you need to know what weird looks like. And bear in mind that weird might not just mean a huge influx of traffic. It could be that, a finance system is talking with a database that it never talked to before. Just one single query or one single database SQL query might be a really big problem depending on what's going on. So look for anomalous traffic, but understand that you're not only looking for just the huge spikes, but the little odd things as well. Antivirus. I love playing with antivirus. It's easy, relatively easy, using tools like Shikata Ganai to take known working malware, repackage it, and make it so that it works and will execute against existing. It basically allows you to bypass the signature detection of existing antivirus products. And so people say, well, antivirus is dead because signature-based detection, is no good. I wouldn't go that far. It does still have, a certain use, right? It's just that you can't rely on it as your only source. Make sure that you have your antivirus locked down. So I'll protect the guilty here, but an excellent moment in antivirus fail was a call center that I was testing, and they had antivirus on each machine because according to some of the regs that they had to have, they had to have antivirus. And they would get the checkbox, yes, you have antivirus. The problem was that it was not centralized reporting, It was individual workstations of, I think it was about 1,500 call center employees, and they had multiple antivirus administrators who would just go around playing with the AV on each individual machine. And the thing that was awesome as a pen tester on this side was when I was launching malware against my one target, there was one person I really needed to get into their machine. I kept on tripping, all these things because I just wasn't getting lucky, bottom line. So the AV was tripping out and saying, whoa, this is bad, this is bad. Well, there was tons of logs and tons of errors that had they used centralized reporting would have just, boom, I would have shot up like a signal flare and they would have known what was going on. Make your own custom malware signatures. Now, this is a cool thing. I was denigrating that call center a moment ago. I'm going to kind of prop them up. One of the things that they did that was kind of cool is to prevent people from installing applications like LimeWire or BitTorrent tools. They actually made custom signatures, custom DAT files that included the applications that they didn't want running. You can do that. Almost all antivirus products out there allow you to make your own signature file for particular pieces, for particular applications. That's kind of cool. If you don't have a tool that allows centralized configuration and application management in your network, but you do have antivirus, and most people have antivirus, this is a cool, way to kind of get around that and still hit that objective. Also, whitelisting. Hot diggity damn, do I love whitelisting. Show of hands, though. How many people are doing whitelisting? Okay, see a couple. Not many. Talk with your antivirus vendor. Ask them what whitelisting features they have. You might already have whitelisting functionality and are not using it. Whitelisting has been, in the past, a pain to enable. But some of the vendors now have a good thing where it's called learn mode. You set it into learning mode, let it run for 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then you go back and you review what applications were running, and then you can see, okay, well, these are cool applications. This will be the blessed list of applications. What that means is a bad guy then, I don't care how crafty I get with tools like Shikata or other repackers. When that particular executable goes to run and it's not on that application whitelist, not going to happen. Now, there are no guarantees. There are some things you can do against whitelisting applications, but the toehold, the surface area for an attacker becomes infinitely smaller. It's a very, very powerful way to protect your systems. Logs. I can't stress this enough. Logging is amazing. It's also the biggest pain to do as a security professional. And finding the right log entry isn't like finding a needle in a haystack. That's too easy. It's like finding one specific needle in a pile of needles. It's really tough. The signal-to-noise ratio in many cases is horrific. Also, one of the things that you want to think about is if you've got, you can use tools like syslog and snare and other things to aggregate your logs. So if you have a central logging collection, and a lot of companies have requirements to do this, so they have these already, start thinking about having alerting enabled so that if something weird happens, that you get an email or that the pager goes off. I hate saying it, but sometimes having the pager go off is a good thing. Also, be thinking about the skill level of the people who are tending your log solution. A lot of places, they put the rookie on that. They say, well, new guy, you're going to cut your teeth, son. I want you to look and just watch this tail run. It's tail-F, and you're going to watch it till your eyes bleed. Have fun. I'm out. And the reason they are doing that is because that person who's being mean had to do that. They had to sit there and watch the tail-F until their eyes bled. The thing that I don't like about that is This is the heartbeat of your company. If this is the network, if these are the systems you're protecting, doesn't it make sense to have your ninjas looking at this? Do you now understand why I think it's a bad thing that we're starting to push blue team into red? If you have someone who's a log ninja, let them be a log ninja. There is plenty of work in statistical analysis, OLAP data cubes. There are plenty of things to do. You can make your career just on logs. Patching. When I teach for SANS, a lot of times there's, here's what you need to do for remediation. And it's patch, patch, patch. Like every other slide, patch. Well, here's this exploit. And what do? Patch. Here's this exploit, patch. And people start laughing and they're like, oh, well, is patching, the end-all be-all? No. But for an interesting exercise, those of you who are familiar with Metasploit or Core Impact, open it up, look at your exploits that are available to you, and count how many are solved by patching. It's not all. It's not perfect. But you're dropping off at least 2/3 of the attacks just by doing something you should already be doing. Patch. Now, most places are really good about patching the operating system. Where things get a little hairy, though, are the applications. What happens when you have, say, developers who, need a piece of software that's just not in the corporate build? What do you guys do? They need that software. So they get it. But it's a one-off. Do you patch that one-off software? Not many places do. It's tedious. It's very hard. It's time-consuming. I don't have a real good answer on patching the applications other than to say, if it's on your network, you have to be willing to give it support. Also, network devices. Show of hands here. Who's done router administration? I have. You have? Okay. So, show of hands. How many people have done a patch on a router device and had the patch blow the thing up? Yeah, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. Patching network devices is one of the most painful and nerve-wracking and just nerve-rattling experiences you're ever going to have. The other thing that, to add insult to injury, say a patch goes flawlessly, you know what you have to do? You have to take down big chunks of the network. You are not a popular person if you're doing network device patching. It needs to be done, though, because if I can get into your router, it's at that point, it's just like I've got a beautiful steak and a nice baked potato and a nice cold beer because I'm just going to sit down and eat your network. It's great. So make sure that your network devices are getting patched. Of the ones that are up there, I think that that's the most painful one to patch because it's risky. Not going to lie. If you're a very large network and you've got, say, the 6500 series Cisco routers, that's not pocket change. It can be very challenging to go to management and say, hey, I need another device that costs more than most sports cars to sit idle for, most of the year, except the couple times a month we're going to run this one thing and it's going to take about 30 minutes. And they're going to just look at you like, yeah, no. So, be aware that it's risky, but you're going to have to articulate the trade space for them. Automation. This is something that I get on my high horse about. Start small and think big. You might be thinking to yourself, well, I know there's so many things that I could automate, but it's so hard. It's, scripting. There's too much. Where do I begin? Guess what, folks? You eat the elephant one bite at a time. That's it. Now, so start small, think big. Think of this. Is there one thing in a given week that just makes your teeth curl? You're just like, oh, I got to do the TPS report again. Ugh. When you have that teeth curling kind of feeling, automate it. Because you know what? It makes it all go away. Now, I'm not going to lie, it takes more effort usually to make the automation. It does. But the neat thing is, from once you get that script going until, heat death of the universe, that thing is gone. It's solved. Now, you might be saying, well, how do I know when to automate something? A good rule of thumb that I got from an excellent book called The Practice of Systems Administration is if you've done something twice, you're almost guaranteed that there's going to be a third, fourth, fifth, sixth. It's just going to happen over and over again. Now, I have heard this from time to time. I'm scared about losing my job if I automate everything away. And I am living, breathing proof that that can happen. I have lost 2, not 1, but 2 jobs as a result of automating myself out of existence. I will tell you this, though. That was the shortest time I have ever been unemployed. In fact, in one case, I'm going to take liberties with the guy, but he's like, Mick, sit on down. I'm like, yes, sir. And he says, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news. Oh, well, good news. Good news is you're fired. I'm going to save a lot of money. And I was like, what's the bad news? And he's like, well, you're going to go work for the competition. What? Well, you see, I was at the country club and having my martini while on the green, and I mentioned about how this one punk sysadmin automated himself out of existence, and I happened to let your name drop. Okay. And so you're going to go work for Ranco. Oh, cool. Yeah, those guys are good. Yeah, you're actually going to be getting paid more and all this other stuff. Sweet. In both times, actually, where I got out, I actually wound up making more money. And it's really weird. It's kind of counterintuitive, but I will say this. When you're in an interview and you can look that person in the eye and say that, because it's standard question, why are you looking for a job? Why aren't you working? You look them in the eye and you say, I automated myself out of my job. I did my job so well that the company now can do what they need to do without me. It's all automated. They're going to be like dry humping your leg at that point. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So remember, you are greater than the robot army, okay? You are. But what's really cool is you can make your robot army. Go out and do it. Another thing about automation, here's something to ponder and think about. About a year and a half ago, the Department of Defense, and with a little bit of help from SANS, they did a survey to see how many public and private sector security positions were available and to see how many security practitioners are available for the United States. There is a lack of security people who are qualified. How much are we lacking? Take a guess. Come on. 75%. It's actually worse than that. We only have 1/10 of the people that we need. And when I first saw that, I was like, yeah, come on. You guys wacky. You. But then I was in a position where I'm starting to sit for interviews and see people that are interviewing, and I got to tell you, that does seem about right. So automation is a great force multiplier to have for your organization. User education. I'm not going to beat this one to death too much, but I will say this. It's not time lost. True, most of the people that go to your education, it's just going to go in one ear and out the other. They don't care about security. Newsflash, we're security people. We're wired differently than everyone else. But here's what's cool. I can't count the number of times I've been doing an incident response or some sort of analysis on it, just an ugly event that I'm dealing with. And, I've kind of hit a wall. I've got the packets, I got the stuff, but I'm missing some pieces in the chronology. And then someone emails me and says, hey, by the by, yesterday I got this email with this attachment, and I didn't open it up because it looked kind of creepy. Thank you. You know why? Because that email didn't just go to that one person. It went to the whole group or select people. So what you're looking for from your user education is you're looking for spies, basically. So do it. Know that a lot of the people aren't going to care. That's just the cost of doing business. But if you can get one or two people from each user education event that you have, you're going to have a network of your own human IDS network that is amazing. Cultivate it. Reporting to management. Don't sound like this guy. Don't be, I used to sit by the window and I could see the squirrels and they were merry. Yeah, you don't want to be this guy, and you might be saying, well, gosh, I'm suave. Well, I'll tell on myself, for instance. I thought that I was all slick and cool because I was trying to present to management, and I said, hey, management, if you buy the Hackatron 5000 security appliance, we're going to put it in, and our return on investment's going to be awesome. I might as well have gone in there with a big clown afro and a red puffy nose. The reason why is I use the phrase return on investment. From a business standpoint, return is money that you make after spending money. Do you know of any security product, process, procedure, or policy that makes you money? Just crickets, quiet. Yeah, that's right. You're an expense. It's what I should have said is that it would be revenue protection. Put the positive spin on there. You need to speak their speak. There's plenty of great books out there. One that I'm working through right now is The Personal MBA. It's an amazing resource, and it's actually been shaping how I think of interacting with business. And oddly enough, as a tech geek, many of the things that management needs to hear are actually kind of anti-intuitive from what we think of as needing to hear. It's very fascinating. So now management. I did see a couple hands in management, so I want to harp on this slide for a little bit. Make sure that your blue team rock stars have a future. Make sure that they have a way to continue to get fulfillment, continue to explore, continue to play with doing the job that they love. One of the things that you can do is maybe you can't grow them any further. Maybe they're a tier 3 and that's as high as you have at your organization. Well, what you can do is maybe say, look, I get that you're tier 3. I can't give you more money, but what I can give you is I'll give you one afternoon every other week to just hack around with the network and just play and come up with new and interesting ways to do what you do better. Giving them time to play is actually a very rewarding thing. One of the things that Google has that's so compelling is that 20% time. That's an unseemly amount of time to give people to just hack around and play. That said, man, as a geek, I got to tell you, that is an amazing benefit to have. Does that cost? Yes. It's an opportunity cost. You're losing, productive time from that person. Maybe they're not going to be coming up with something that's amazing and powerful, but a perfect case of where they rolled the dice and saw how it went was Atlassian Software. They're an Australian company. I learned about them from the Java Posse, which is a really cool podcast. It's much tamer than Security Justice or Paul.com, which is more the pity. But anyway, they implemented just once a quarter, they would have what they called Fun Day, where for 24 hours, the engineers were allowed to work with whoever they wanted to on whatever they wanted to, 24 hours. They They squashed so many bugs in their software, it was ridiculous. They started making that being a mandatory event where they, I think it's now almost monthly there. But it's amazing how you can motivate people with not just dollar signs, not just titles. Also, be able to understand who your rock stars are. Seat time does not equal skills. It's, you might have someone who's come into the organization and has only been there for a year, but they just really get the stuff. They understand it. They think like, a blue teamer ought to. And you've got some other guy who's been there for 40 years and just really doesn't get it. So understand that, you need to set up a meritocracy if you can. Also, blue teamers, one bit of advice I can give you is if you're not happy with your job, and please understand that I don't mean like you're, clicking your heels, jumping into work, whistling zippity-doo-dah. If you are, you might need to have your meds adjusted. But, I'm just saying that if you're not happy with your job, remember, it takes two to tango. You need to come up with what your career goal is. And if practical, chat with your manager about it. The chances are your manager will at least try to help you be happy. Policies. Boy, this is something that a lot of people hate. Policies, it's dry, it's not fun. And you know what? You're dead wrong. Because you know why? Policies is you hacking the company. Policies are amazing because there's been plenty of times where I've been at multiple, and this is something I try to do at every single company. I've had cases of where I'm like, well, you can't do X, Y, Z, and they say, oh, why? And I don't have policy to back it up. What's really cool is if I write the policy or assist in the writing of the policy, I actually have that piece of paper and I can say, hey, just so you know, you can't have that particular bit of software, you can't do X, Y, Z. And they're like, oh, stupid security guy. And you go, no, it's not me, stupid security guy. It's this policy. Hate the policy. I'm just here to tell you. As a matter of fact, I'm just here to tell you because look, see here on this section of the policy, it says that you can get terminated for doing this. So this is actually like me being a really nice guy. You still have your job. And they're like, thank you so much, security guy. So policies are huge. One thing that you, just real quick, make sure that it's based off of a framework. Using frameworks actually makes policy creation easier and helps you when you're having to do business with other companies. Make sure that information security has a seat at the table. It's great to actually put in what you want in the policy and then later on, it might not be an immediate payoff, but when that day comes, man, is that cool. Auditing. I love auditing. I love doing assessments. And you know why? Because if you do your policies, this is where the policy, your policy is the teeth. Auditing is the jaw that grinds the teeth down. Auditing's not a four-letter word. It's an amazing process because it is the agent of change. If you talk about the teams or the groups in your organization who have political juice, the clout, internal audit, baby. Everybody's scared of them. If you have these guys on your side, again, you get to be it's not, I'm just the security guy, it's that auditor. He is just so mean. But here, let me help you understand why we need to do what we need to do. Here's a pro tip, though. When you work with your auditor, either an internal audit team or an external audit team, you can, depending on how sly you want to be, you can actually be very subtle and say, oh, so financial services audit, huh? And they're like, yep. You're going to be testing financial systems and seeing how secure they are. Yep. Does that mean you would maybe be checking the Active Directory to see how long the password expiration is set? Yeah, why? Oh, just wondering. Just leave those little seeds. Now, be careful on how you do that. You can wind up causing a little problems, as a certain hip-hop star is fond of saying, snitches get stitches. So be careful on how you do that. Now, some takeaways. Attacker's advantage. All we need is one weak link in the chain. And this, I should have upped the contrast here a little bit, but that's a nice thick chain, padlock, a zip tie holding that together. Weak. All right, blue team deserves love. Really, internet, that's what you got for, the blue team. Earn that love. Understand that you've got to earn it. Nobody's going to come in, sweep you, and treat you right. You have to show your value to the organization. Maximize the tools. Make sure that you can show that they're getting a good, good value out of what they're paying for. Up your skills. Listen to podcasts. Watch videos. Hey, BSides folks. There's plenty of ways that you can increase your skill set. You can't go it alone. Remember the tripod, remember the stool. You've got management, you got red team. You can't just do it by yourself. So give Blue a chance. Make sure that they have a career. Make sure that policies are around that give them the teeth that they need. And make sure that auditing is the one who's enforcing those policies. Blue team should not be the long arm of the law. That's a fight they shouldn't be in. So, questions? Oh, okay, so I've been told that all questions will be handled in the hallway chat. So, bottom line is, I don't want you to be like this guy who just walks away all confused. If you've got some questions, comments, whatever, let me know. And feel free, if you can't meet up in the hallway or if you're on the BSides streaming, folks, feel free to hit me at my email address or on Twitter. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Mick. Great talk. All right, I wanted to get everybody out of here for lunch. If you have questions for Mick, go see him out in the hallway here or come on up. And we'll be back at 1 o'clock to do the afternoon sessions. 1 o'clock.